Break-in. We need to talk about January 6th, which, again, for anybody who knows that is what is an insurrection, what an insurrection is, January 6th was not an insurrection. I could explain this all day, but you know that the mainstream media keeps pushing this. That never happened. Nobody tried to topple the government at that moment. Donald Trump did not send his troops to topple the government and defeat or destroy democracy. All that is nonsense. We have this from Charlie Kirk. Breaking, an Inspector General report confirms the FBI had 26 confidential human sources on the ground at J6 and that some of them went into the Capitol. There were feds in there. Was this entrapment? Why did it take us 4 years to learn this? This is criminal. These people who are hostages, the hostages of January 6th, have to be released. It was the feds.
Piece of news to kick off the show today, Sandra. I'm John Roberts in Washington. The report reveals that there were a total of 26 confidential human sources in the crowd that day.
David Spunt is live from the Justice Department. He has got the news for us. David.
Sandra, 3 of those were authorized and tasked by the FBI to be there on January 6, 2021.
By the way, I haven't mentioned that Chris Wray has resigned. Chris Wray, I believe I haven't mentioned it on my lives, but now I just did.
We're coming up on 4 years since that day of the Capitol riot. This IG report specifically focuses on the FBI's handling of confidential human sources, or as we know them, FBI informants. For years, the outgoing FBI director, Chris Wray, has been pressed on reports of undercover agents. According to this new report, there were no undercover FBI agents. However, there were 3 confidential human sources tasked by the Bureau to be in the crowd on January 6th to specifically watch what the report states is concerns over domestic terrorism. Out of those 3, Sandra and John, 1 entered the Capitol, 2 others entered a restricted area. The report says the FBI did not encourage or authorize any sources to go into the building or a restricted area.
Yeah, but sure. That's how do we know that those were the only ones in there? How do we know that those were the only ones in there?
In addition to the 3 confidential human sources, the FBI told there were 23 that were there on their own. Now, they had worked with the FBI in the past on other cases.
On their own. Okay, so, you know what? I'm going to the Capitol. I don't need any permission. I act alone. I'm going on my own. He just went for that. They just went for that. It's that simple. That's what Kash Patel is going to declassify all that. And when he declassifies all that,
but not specifically on the January 6th rally. Some of them entered a restricted area as well. And what stands out in this report, John and Sandra, none of the confidential human sources that entered the U.S. Capitol or a restricted area were prosecuted by the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah, they got a pass. They got a pass. And somebody of you mentioned, of course, Wray Epps, yes.
Remember, this is an office that is still arresting nearly 4 years later and prosecuting people with this case. Now, in a response to the Inspector General, the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office says the following. The D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office generally has not charged those individuals whose only crime on January 6, 2021 was to enter the restricted grounds surrounding the Capitol, which has resulted in the office declining to charge hundreds of individuals, and we have treated the confidential human sources as consistent with this approach. Outgoing FBI Director Christopher Wray, who announced that he would be stepping down in the next few weeks yesterday.
How convenient. That was a very convenient timing. You think that it was a coincidence? But this timing seems to always align themselves, like one day after the other. So convenient. So not suspicious at all.
Has been pressed on the FBI's role on January 6th. Here's just one clip from last year.
If you are asking whether the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources and/or agents, the answer is emphatically
You're saying
not.
no?
No.
You're saying no?
Not
Okay.
violence orchestrated by
move
FBI
on.
sources or agents.
Yeah, but you can see, in terms of Chris Wray, I think I analyzed this video at the moment. You see that there was this ghost. I can imagine that the director of the FBI, whoever is this, at any point knows how to control his emotions and knows how to control his body language. Any person who works in the FBI, any Fed knows how to control his body language, and in fact knows how to use his body language for full effect. That's something that I train people for. And how can you speak with your body language and project a message with your body language and disguise what you want to say with your body language? It's a way of covering up your tracks. And I'm pretty sure that he was being emphatically in here, very emphatic. I'm going to mute this and just play it again and see only his body language. You see his demeanor in which he was looking directly at the guy. He only raised his eyebrows at some point to make for emphasis. He was a bit jumpy all over the place, but all in all, he looked like passionate. Like, why are you asking me this? This is simply not true. Let's watch that clip again, just in case. Let's watch that clip again.
If you are asking whether the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources and/or agents, the answer is emphatically
You're saying
not.
no?
No.
You're saying no?
Not
Okay.
violence orchestrated
Let's
by
move
FBI
on.
sources or agents.
Confidential human sources tasked by the FBI are not undercover agents. These are people that belong to groups like, for instance, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and then became paid FBI informants at certain points in time while still being members of their groups. And of course, John.
That is interesting because you are like outsiders. You are outsourcing. How come that you are outsourcing people to do the job of the FBI? How does that work? Because you are gaining intelligence and you're giving that intelligence to the FBI, but how can the FBI trust that that you are to be trusted? How does that work? It should always be people vetted by the FBI and working inside the FBI. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm always open to discuss these kind of things because I am not an expert in many topics, including why does the FBI outsource people in this it's like they hire moles to inform the FBI. Is that what this guy's talking about? I don't know. Maybe that is the way to frame it, but I don't think that is the most secure of safe way of getting information, because we could also be talking about double agents, people who are sending information in the opposite way as well.
Of course, John and Sandra, others are not part of any group and just decided to show up to the Capitol for whatever reason and still work with the FBI on the side and provide information. And we're, of course, waiting for more information from Capitol Hill to see if the White House has anything, the Department of Justice, the FBI, as this report just breaking now.
So I guess if Chris Wray resigned, then he cannot be he cannot be asked questions about this, or he should be facing questions about this. How does that work? We don't know, but it is all the developments. We see that the conspiracy theories, not all of them, the world is not flat, the world is round. All these conspiracy theories begin to unfold, and we find out the truth about them, like much after the fact. And I'm pretty sure that they did not expect that we were going to be living in this timeline, the timeline in which Elon Musk was essentially forced to buy Twitter, and then he turned Twitter around and then turned it into a free speech platform. And thanks to that free speech platform, we could say so many things and share so many things. And the failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, two of those assassination attempts, the absolute meltdown and crashing down of the Democrat Party, the infighting between Biden and Kamala Harris, all of that, none of them expected any of that. None of them expected any of this. But what happened? What happened to what's happening on